everyone. Welcome to a delicious edition of Valerie's Kitchen. Today we're cooking my famous beef roast. So the roast I chose today is a chuck roast. You know, this is Aunt Val's kitchen, and this dish is one of my nephew's favorite meal. He loves my chuck roast. He lives in California. Whenever he comes to Mobile, he calls ahead of time. Aunt Val, I'm coming to Mobile. Are you going to be able to cook me a roast? And my answer is always yes. So today we're cooking my nephew's favorite meal, my chuck roast. Now, different types of roast you can use. You can use a sirloin roast. Well, I only use two. I use either the sirloin or the chuck roast, okay? So you can use other if you like, but to me, the chuck roast and the sirloin tip roast, they're more tender and they always cook. I'm never disappointed with those two roasts, okay? All right, so here are the ingredients that we have. We're gonna have black pepper. We got garlic powder and onion powder. You can use regular sea salt or salt if you want, but I use seasoning salt, but you can use sea salt if you want in place of seasoning salt. I just like the seasoning salt better. I have 4 cloves of garlic. That's a large onion. That's a medium-sized bell pepper. Plain all-purpose flour. Then I have some all-purpose flour this is self-rising flour. Then I have some self-rising flour that I brown. And this is just to help thicken. I'm not going to use all this. This is just to help thicken the gravy as we go. Now, some people, when they cook their roast, right before the roast is done, they add potatoes and carrot. Today, well, I'm not going to do that. I do it every now and then, but I'd rather have my potatoes and my carrots on the side. But these are the potatoes and carrots that we'll be cooking later, and I'll show you how I do that later in the show, okay? And also, I have a packet of beefy onion dry soup mix, and I have bouillon base. I use the paste. I don't use the cubes. This has a little more flavor. And we got a little vegetable oil, okay? So my vegetable oil is already heating on the stove. I'm going to put while I'm seasoning my roast, we're going to go ahead and saute the bell pepper and onion. So I'm going to just throw it over here in the grease. The grease is already hot. That's about 1/4 cup of grease, oil rather. And I use, I'm going to turn it down a little bit. I let it get hot on medium, but I'm turning it down on medium low. It only takes about 5 minutes. So stir that in there really good. Let it saute. Okay? Now we're going to go back over here and season the roast, okay? So, I'm going to use, you can season it in whatever order you want, but I season one side of the roast first. And you can season it to taste. Rub it in really good. I'm going to add a little more seasoning salt over here. A little more garlic. And onion powder. You know, I got the onion and garlic powder mixed in there together. Okay. Now, I did not pat it dry with a paper towel. And I'm going to tell you why. Before we cook it, we're going to dredge it in that flour. And I want it to pick up that flour. So I want it to be a little moist so it can pick up that flour, okay? Oh, I forgot my black pepper. Okay? Then you're going to take it and dredge it in the flour on one side. And then you're going to dredge it in the flour on the other side. Now, my mom used to cook roast several different ways. She would cook them in the bag in the oven. She would cook them in the crock pot, which I still do the crock pot. And she'll cook them on top of the stove with gravy, or in the oven with gravy, in the oven without gravy, with a lot of different spices like thyme and rosemary. But today, what I've done is I've taken some of the ways that she cook her roast and kind of combined them in one and got what I'm looking for. So my mom is a good cook now. I learned from the best. Okay. So we're going to let these cook for about 3 more minutes, and then we're going to take it out, put a little more oil in there, and start on the roast. Okay, so now we got to add our garlic. Okay, it's been about 4 minutes, because the garlic, you only want it to cook about a minute. Okay, just a minute. See, the onions are beginning to look like you can see through it. That's what you want it to look like. You don't want to overcook it though, because they're going to cook some more inside when you put your gravy and your roast and everything in there. You're just getting the flavors. Bringing out the flavors of the onion, the bell pepper, and the garlic. That's what you're doing first. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to take the onion, the bell pepper, and the garlic, and we're going to put it in a bowl. And then we're going to put some more oil. We're going to add a little more oil. I forgot I moved everything over here close to the stove. So you add a little more oil. That's probably about 2 tablespoons maybe. We say 2 to 3 tablespoons of oil. Got to let it heat up. So it's only going to take about a minute to heat. So you let it heat for about a minute, and then we're going to add our roast. Turn your heat back up to about 5, about medium. Okay, so now we got the roast. We've dredged it on both sides into the flour. You're done with that. So then you're going to take your roast and just put it. This is a tender roast, y'all. I want y'all to know that. It's very tender. It's falling apart before I even cook it. And you're going to let it brown. It's going to take about 7 to 10 minutes, depending on how high you have your grease. It's going to take about 7 to 10 minutes on one side, and then you're going to flip it and let it go about 7 to 10 minutes on the other side. Okay? So I'm going to turn it up just a little bit, because it's going to start cooling that oil down. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit and let it cook for about 10 minutes, and then we'll flip it over. Okay? Okay, so now it's ready to turn. You got to keep your eye on it now, because you don't want to burn it. It's okay if it get a little brown, a little darker. That's perfect. That's what you want it to look like. That is perfect, okay? So people are like, why are you getting it all crispy? Well, that's going to help make your help your gravy. That flour is going to turn your gravy a nice dark color. So, I'm going to let it cook probably, since that grease is hot, it's probably not going to take 10 minutes on this side. Maybe about 5 minutes on this side, because this grease is really hot now. I did turn it up a little bit above medium, just a little bit, okay? So we're going to let that cook for 5 minutes. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about my carrots while we're waiting on the roast to brown. I got these beautiful, colorful rainbow carrots, okay? Now, You don't have to get this type of carrot. You can just use regular carrots, orange carrots, and regular potatoes. You can use new potatoes. You can use the russet potatoes. Any kind of potato you want. It's totally up to you. Okay? I use whatever I have in the kitchen at the time. But these right here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to wash them really good. Then I'm going to peel them. I'm going to probably split them in half. Cut them in half and split them down the middle. And then I'm going to roast them. And I'm going to put some herbs and seasonings on it. And we're going to roast them in the oven along with the potatoes. And then when it's done, we're going to just eat it alongside our roast. Okay. So, as soon as that's done, we're going to go to the next step. Okay, so our roast is ready now to go to the next step. So I'm going to take it out of here. Okay. I'm going to pour off this grease because I don't want it to make my gravy too greasy. Okay. So I'm going to pour it because this roast is going to, a chuck roast has fat in it. So it's going to have enough fat. You don't need that extra. Okay. So now I'm going to put my roast back in the pan. Then I'm going to pour enough broth to cover the roast. Now, some people use water. This is years and years of experimenting. Cooking is like a science project. Okay? You just keep experimenting different things till you get what you're looking for. So, my mom, she started cooking with the broth, and I like that. So, that's what I use, the broth. Okay? Now I'm going to add my beefy onion, or you can get beefy mushroom. If you want mushrooms, you can cook mushrooms too. Now sometimes I do add mushrooms to my gravy. And what you do is you just cut them up. You put the mushrooms in here about the same time when you're sauteing your onions and bell pepper. Then when you get ready to put your garlic in, you can add your mushrooms at the same time. About a cup of mushroom, half a cup to a cup, whatever you like. Okay? So, again, I use beef broth. Okay? Not water. However, if you're in a fix, you don't have any beef broth, you can use water. But the beef broth is going to give it more flavor. Okay? So, we've added the soup mix. Now, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. I browned this flour prior to. Okay? Now, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons now because I already know I'm going to need about 2 tablespoons to get what I'm looking for. Okay? And you can whisk this in if you want. But as it cooks, these lumps will cook out. It's not a lot of lumps. Now, if your broth is hot, when you add this, now, it's not hot now, it's a little warm. But if your broth is hot, when you add this flour, the lumps are not going to break up as easily. But you can look in there and see. There are no lumps. See? Trust your Aunt Val, okay? She knows what she's talking about. Okay. Then, I'm going to add my beefy bouillon. Okay. Now, that's going to have to melt, okay? It takes it a minute. But it'll melt as it goes. You don't have to worry about that. It's going to dissolve up in there. Like it's pretty much has. See how dark it's turning that gravy? Okay. So, now, you don't have to use as much gravy if you don't want to. I just like a lot of gravy because when I get ready to cook my mashed potatoes or my rice, we from the South, so we like our rice smothered in gravy. So now we're going to add the onions, bell pepper, and the garlic back in. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to leave it on the temperature that it's on. Once it starts boiling, I'm going to turn it down right below medium. You don't want it too low, but right below medium is what I'm going to turn it to. So right now, I'm going to let it come to a boil. Keep an eye on it because you still got your flour settling in there and there's still room for your flour to scorch. So you're going to keep an eye on it. You're not going to walk away and go watch your favorite TV show. You're going to stay here. You're going to babysit it until it boils. And you're going to stir as you're going. You can use your whip or you can use your wooden spatula. But you're going to stir. Make sure the flour is not settling on the bottom. Once it starts boiling, you're going to stir it again really good. And then you're going to turn it down. And you're going to let it cook for about 2.5 to 3 hours. Okay? Now, you can, now at this point, if you want, you can take it. If you're on your way to work, or you on your way to church, on your way to the mall, whatever, you can take it, put it in. You can take all this, transfer it over to a crock pot, put it on whatever temperature or setting your crock pot says you need to put it on for a roast, and you can just leave it and let it cook, and it'll be just fine. It's still going to be the same thing. But we're going to eat today. We don't want to wait 6-7 hours later. We want to eat in about 3 hours, okay? Because everything else I'm cooking going to be ready in about 3 hours. And by the way, look at my beautiful banana pudding. I made that this morning. Now, that's a banana pudding right there. That's made with the custard, baked in the oven. I have to do that recipe one day. Okay, so again, babysit it till it starts boiling. Turn it down to about medium-low and let it cook for about 2.5 to 3 hours. Okay, I'll see you back then. Okay, so now we're back. The roast is done. Look how nice that looks. That gravy is nice, rich, succulent. You don't see all the grease on top because we poured that grease off in the beginning. So it's not, you don't see all the fat if you would have left that grease on there. Now time to taste. So we're going to go over here and cut it off. Cut us a piece off. See how tender that is? Put it right there on that rice, on that bed of rice. Add a little gravy. You know I told you from the South, we like gravy. We like rice without gravy. How about that? Okay? Don't that look delicious? Don't that look delicious? Ooh. Getting a little anxious there. Garnish a little bit with a little green onion. Okay? Now time to take. Now, these are my sides. I made some fresh green beans, macaroni and cheese. Here are our roasted potatoes. Now, you can add gravy to the potatoes and carrots if you like. Totally up to you. Okay? So, see how easy that pulls apart? See how tender that is? Literally melts in your mouth. You don't even need a knife. You can pull it apart with your fork. I got somebody on the other side of this camera. Who wants to try it? All those southern flavors mixed in there together. You got your macaroni, your green beans. And I forgot. I make biscuits to go with it. Instead of cornbread, I make biscuits today. Okay. Now, don't forget to like, share, and comment. If you like me to try any of these other recipes that's on the plate, the green beans and macaroni, I'll be more than happy to do record a show on that, but you have to let me know. So thanks for tuning in to another edition. You guys have a great day.